Five. Good. Is everybody fine?
Our state must have reliable utilities without overwhelming Hoosier families with skyrocketing rates. Today, I am affirming my commitment to protect Hoosiers by calling for entrepreneurial solutions to address utility rates. The Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission has an important role to play in our mission to protect ratepayers. I'm appointing 3 Hoosier leaders to the nominating committee for the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. It's going to be Secretary of Energy and Natural Resources, Susie Jaworowski, former State Rep Darlene Sherman, and Business Executive Corey Cochran from Floyd County. The nominating committee has an important role of evaluating the applicants for the full-time IURC commissioner roles. We have 3 vacancies on this board, and we are now accepting applications. We're seeking entrepreneurial individuals that are going to think out of the box, and they're going to have a special attention to rates that Hoosiers bear in general. If you're interested in protecting ratepayers, ensuring Indiana has a stable energy supply, that's the other side of the equation, and if you can bring objectivity and fairness to the table, we want to hear from you. The nominating committee will review applications in the days ahead. I encourage anyone interested to apply. There'll be a website you can find how to do it. Be easy to do. Together, we will ensure that energy progress doesn't come at the expense of Hoosier ratepayers' ability to afford their energy bills. Thank you. We'll now open it up to Q&A for either me or Susie. Well, I think we're going to make sure that we give enough time to it. What are we thinking?
It'll be 3 weeks for applicants to submit their application on the website.
How many applications have you already received? Have you started receiving them already?
No applications have been received yet. Today is the first day that the application can be downloaded and found at the governor's website. The application process will be open until October 14th at the end of the day. And so you can find that application at the website, on the governor's website. No, a lot of people have expressed interest, but we don't know who will apply yet. So the application process starts today.
And if it's similar to other high-profile jobs that have become available, we've had a lot of people interested. Be very similar to early on when I put together a group of over 100 individuals to help us reorganize state government. That was an amazing confluence of individuals that sense that there's something afoot in terms of what we're trying to do with state government, to kind of streamline it, run it more efficiently, be more entrepreneurial with it. So I expect a good slate of candidates to come forward, especially on an issue that has seemed to replace the fervor of what property taxes would have been in 24 and 25. This is now on the minds of a lot of folks. Yeah, I mean, I think when you're saying you want people that think out of the box, it's going to also be dependent on having as deep an experience in the subject matter as possible. So we've been attracting a lot of people that give us both. So we'll use the kind of full spectrum of criteria there to arrive at the right individuals. So when it comes to rates being too high already, you can see what occurred just recently where the office that's supposed to represent consumer counselor, that was an AES request, right? So not only did she not think an increase was warranted, she thought there should be a decrease, taking everything into consideration. And I'll look at this just like the property tax discussion. The prior administration dumped the nasty of inflation into our economy through COVID. And you can see how long it's taken to get that tamped down. And when you look at that, it basically grew the federal government mostly, not the real economy, and gave us somewhere in the neighborhood of mid-20s in inflation. So everybody had to recoup costs. And when it comes to how this is going to work itself out, utility companies are in the same place. They had legitimate cost increases, but whenever you go beyond covering your costs and it looks like you're trying to do more, then you're taking advantage of a system that needs to be a little more attentive. So you saw what just happened yesterday. I think data centers are going to have to expect that they need to make the case to locals. Thank goodness our legislature passed a minimum amount that any data center will have to put into it, again, to protect ratepayers. And I'm looking not for just 80% of the cost of generation. We're going to try to get the folks that want to do 100, maybe even more, to put some back on the grid. We got a great business climate. And you can see now it created a dust up because it wasn't sold to, and it's not going to be for all places. Met with a rural county just last week that would love to have a data center because they don't have enough population to support a ton of employees, but they sure could use the CapEx, the assessed value, to spread that burden over more assessed value. And there's a perfect fit. They're looking for one. Every place will be different. Every county really will have a different appetite for it. And I think if they do a good job on explaining the pros and cons and make sure they're not trying to abate taxes to where it can be helpful to these jurisdictions to a degree that would be, too extreme, it can be a win-win. You can see here that didn't make sense, and that's going to vary across the state. We still have to make sure that we got enough generation capacity, but it's got to also be done taking the ratepayer in mind, like we talked about earlier. I couldn't hear you. Go ahead. I think we're going to always make decisions based upon what we know makes the most sense currently. And you're going to see that it's going to have to be sold to wherever it's going in. There's been a few that have actually done that. But now that rates also have gotten in a place that most people are uncomfortable with, any data center is going to have to expect that since one could use up to 5% of our current generation, that they're going to have to be responsible for paying for it, and then ideally making the case of the community benefits more broadly. And I think we'll still get a lot of data centers wanting to do it because we're a good place to be for any business. So it'll come down to what you've seen on solar and wind. I mean, we've got 70 counties currently that have a moratorium on it. So anything that is going to gin up local concern, got to make sure you sell it, and it may not work for every place. But we need to make sure that we keep rates under control and still have adequate generation to make sure we grow our economy.
Have you heard from federal officials whether or not they still intend to use Camp Out area as a price contention facility?
Other than the possibility that they might, I've not heard that they will for sure. I think the focus has been on Miami.
Last week on redistricting, you mentioned that if we don't get in line, if we drive our food on redistricting, there could be consequences to the effects. Any indication of what those might be?
I mean, I think when you look at a state like Indiana, we've been on the leading edge of the discussion on education reform. I think we're kind of knocking it out of the park here through our Secretary of Education and that policy silo. We were the state that the whole and been probably the biggest issue I've harped on way before I got into government was healthcare, the high cost of it, and that we got to start focusing on prevention and wellness, not expensive remediation, having a couple insurance companies that basically control our market and hospitals that are out of control with their costs compared to other states. So if we want to work with the federal government, and then I'll put it like this, and I've said before, not to get too political, but it's true, gerrymandering's gone on for a long time. The chorus is coming from the other side of the aisle because there's no more room to do it. I cite Massachusetts as the closest example. And if you want policies that are in line with the prior administration, I mean, you'll probably get more of that because we're that evenly balanced. And you can make the case that it's unfair over time because we haven't been as aggressive as the other side. And I think it boiled down to anybody trying to sort through this. You want more big government, borrowing and spending, policies that came out of the prior administration, or do you want something that makes more sense? That is how you distill it in terms of whether you're probably for it or not. And I'm going to be in the same place I was along the way. It's going to have to sell among the legislators. As I said a couple weeks ago, I think there's a migration towards that, and there's a ways to go. No, and I really wouldn't expect that would probably occur. It's just something that, why would you mess with a relationship where Indiana's been accruing a lot of benefits from it? But more importantly, I'd go back to the underlying policy reasons. If you really think we want more of a Schumer and Pelosi and Biden approach to government, even here in Indiana, especially at the federal level, I mean, be careful, weigh that. I was vocally, obviously, against that when I was in my prior job. And here, I think I got a clear indication of what we need to do as a state that can accrue the benefits of working on policies that make sense. And that would not be policies that are going to continue borrowing and spending and bankrupting the country. And I think that's what it gets down to. Do 2 seats make a difference? Well, I mean, if you're looking at it from that point of view, maybe yes, but you got to get buy-in to do it. And I think we're moving in that direction. Really, that's no different from what I said a couple of weeks ago. Well, clearly both senators are for it. Our 7 Republican congressmen are for it. I've been observing people that were hard-nosed simply because I think it's a Hoosier mentality. Just kind of stick with the rules, don't do things out of the norm. Well, I don't think we've had a normal political environment for quite some time. And I do think that if you're wanting more government, the heavier hand there federally, this becomes an issue if you want to weigh in against it. And yes, I think people have been considering it, seeing how it plays out in the big picture. And I think there's more of an appetite for it, but I don't think that's been whipped or counted. I think we're still getting there.
When it comes to going back to the recommendation from the OECC Council,
Yeah.
these candidates, are you looking specifically as part of the criteria for them to agree with her recommendation regarding this proposed rate? Is that part of it?
Not necessarily having to agree with that particular one, but making sure that there's going to be a balance between ratepayers and IOUs or utilities. And I don't know that we've had that in the current dynamic. So going forward, to me, the all the complaining about property taxes, look how long we litigated that, and I think got something done that was pretty good for trying to balance both. Probably each extreme, not very happy. Locals and school districts know now that they kind of probably not try to grow their own governments faster than our economy, which most people would agree to. So, but having to dovetail completely, but the tone is going to be ratepayers, I think, have taken the brunt of it, and each utility is going to have to make sure they make the case that they've not gone above and beyond covering inflation and a reasonable growth quotient. Very analogous to what we went through on property taxes.
Some consumer advocates have said the IURC often has its hands tied by the state legislature. You're the state product of what the legislature wants to do. Do you feel like there's more work that needs to be done on the legislative level?
I think if there's stuff structurally in there that would give that benefit of the doubt or edge, I'm going to be a vocal spokesman to make sure we legislate that into neutrality and make sure that we're looking at the equation fairly. You got to remember that the thing on property taxes is where lobbyists work very hard and a big proponent of healthy schools and local governments. But the taxpayer didn't probably have that representation. Probably ratepayers don't when it comes to utilities. That's where someone's got to be a voice for it, and I will be that voice. And I think the legislature's got eyes and ears, and they've been listening to and watching.
Regarding utility prices, you mentioned the moratorium that many counties in Indiana have on certain energy projects.
Yeah.
Do you think that approach that individual counties are able to put moratoriums on certain types of projects, does that make sense to you?
Well, I think we just saw an example of it, not as a county, but in an area, a jurisdiction that was against it. So I think you learn from wind and solar. And here, I think data centers are kind of in that same category. And just like I told you earlier, I've had, I think, smaller counties that struggle more on their assessed value, who all pays into it. Just from the example that they gave me, could be the place where there ends up being less objection to it. Solar fields, windmills have maybe an aesthetic issue, especially if it's parked next to a lot of people. Here, out in the middle of nowhere, this is going to be small relative to the footprint that a wind turbine field or a solar panel field would have. So I think it's got a better chance of maybe helping some of the counties that need the most help, which would be our rural counties.
Indiana University was recently rated according to the worst for free speech in the country. Any concerns that Indiana's becoming known as a place where free speech isn't valued? And is this investigation by the Attorney General and Secretary General maybe appropriate?
I think the irony of that question would be that Charlie Kirk was the main spokesman for free speech and doing it in a civil manner. Cost him his life. And when it comes to other folks taking joy in something like that, or being out there to where it would ever cross the threshold into violence, I think that's what that is about. That's a tricky kind of balance to keep as well. And to me, free speech is a cornerstone of our democracy. But there's also a point where you go above and beyond. And even if it's not coming from government, you can see other institutions outside of government don't want that happening in their organizations. That'll be litigated like many things if it crosses to be too oppressive or to where there's not enough attention paid to the fact that sometimes it can go overboard. Well, I'm going to take that 3 seconds of silence to say that we covered it pretty well. Thanks for coming in. Good questions. Appreciate it.